Dear Ambassador Gordner of the Utana people, I write to you as a friend and ally. We have known each other for many cycles, and I even dare to call you friend. As a friend, please heed my words. Do not go to war against the humans. I will forever remember 4 words that the human ambassador uttered to me when I approached him to declare war, as my species has done since time immemorial. The words were, "Please don't do this." At the time, I thought he was pleading for the survival of his species. Now I know better. He was pleading for the survival of mine. Knowing that your people have been a bit withdrawn from the galactic community for the past 200 or so cycles, allow me to put some perspective on this. Humanity was a relative newcomer to the galactic scene, having recently developed faster-than-light travel and spreading to the habitable worlds in their cluster. They encountered one of the Ryland ships on an exploratory mission, and after several long cycles of effort, managed to communicate comprehensively. Thus, they learned about the Galactic Union, and came forth to present their application. It was deemed acceptable, and humans were granted recognition, and were free to colonize worlds in their cluster with impunity. Their industry and population grew as their race prospered for many cycles, and they proved to be, if not a useful member of the Union, then a member that did not tax its resources, being mostly self-sufficient. After a while, they petitioned the Union to grant them access to further worlds, one in particular on which a resource they desperately needed was abundant. However, my race, the Sorali, had claim to this world, although we did nothing with it. Humans offered to purchase the world from us, offered another world of theirs in trade, one which they carefully selected because they fit our physiology, and we could colonize it with little effort and almost no terraforming necessary. They then offered more than the world was worth. In our arrogance and sense of superiority, we refused. They then sent covert teams and fast ships to extract the resource and take it away. Our navy detected them, and after they refused to surrender the illegally obtained goods, destroyed their vessels. Thinking that that was it, that the humans would keep quiet so as not to embarrass themselves over a few rocks, and deciding that slinging formal accusations to the Union would be too much of a hassle, we decided not to do anything further. Humans, imagine this, tried the tactic again. But this time they defended themselves, managing to destroy one of our destroyers before being obliterated. In my culture, this is tantamount to a declaration of war, and we were baffled when the humans did not approach us to declare it. I actually had lunch with their ambassador, who said something along the lines of, "We tried, we failed, no hard feelings." It was mind-boggling. He was readily admitting to an act of aggression and was completely blasé about losing their mining ships. To clarify, my race evolved from peaceful herbivores, simply being larger and stronger than most predators in our world, using the strength of numbers to fend off the bigger ones. Ever since we attained reason, our culture progressed into a warrior-like one, but it was tempered by philosophy, honoring combat, giving quarter, and respecting your opponent. Developing a strong sense of community and value of individuals in that community. We believed in honorably declaring war on our enemies. All of the battles we ever fought before leaving our planet were defensive in nature. Even most of the wars we fought after becoming members of the Union. We were the most powerful fighting force in the Union by the strength of numbers alone, aside from our technological superiority. Nobody else dared challenge our supremacy in that field for hundreds of cycles. I do admit we have grown complacent and, dare I say, arrogant in that time. What we knew of humans was mostly their philosophies, poetry, art and skill for bargaining. They seemed a peaceful culture, unsuited for war. After all, they hadn't had a major engagement in almost one of their centuries. They were also physically smaller than us. We thought them no threat. We thought that the fight would be easy as I arrogantly approached the human ambassador and plopped the declaration of war on his desk. I was not as well versed in understanding human expressions then, but I believe that his face displayed sadness as he read the declaration. I was experiencing fear, terror, maybe anger, not sadness. I thought he was sad for his people, for this toll this war was inevitably going to take. We were such fools. We should have read their history more carefully. This was supposed to be an easy, short war, something to look back at with pride. Slapping away a thief's hand. We would crush the opposition, take over a few of their worlds, sign a peace treaty when they sued for it, do an exchange of prisoners, and that would be that. A few songs, a few books, maybe a few statues and busts. Any sane species in the galaxy would fight like that. The problem was, humans, you see, are not sane. The first few skirmishes we had with them went our way, and we destroyed what we mistakenly thought to be the humans' main force. We captured a few prisoners and put them to the question. This was the first moment a subtle unease crept into my mind while reading the reports. While physically smaller than my people, humans' muscles were far denser and more elastic, and their neural pathways transmitted signals with a rapidity my species could not hope to match. This meant that an average member of the human race was about as strong as our strongest warriors, if not stronger, and had reflexes that were twice as fast as ours. They also proved surprisingly resilient, withstanding torture which would have killed a member of our species several times over. Some poisons we tested, poisons which would kill a room full of our people. They seemed to only give them a minor inconvenience. They could go for days without food and water, and they could survive amputations in unsanitary conditions with nothing but minor fevers and infections that usually didn't kill them. Their brain was, while smaller than ours by half, endowed with more layers and more densely wrinkled. They also had binocular vision, which, while giving them the field of vision, a third of ours, gave them unprecedented ability to judge distances on the fly. Just from the biological standpoint, they were superior to us in almost every way. This is when we found out that they evolved to be an apex predator in their world, being hyper-specialized for pursuit predation. As you know, Ambassador, this is almost unheard of in the Union, as most predators in other worlds simply do not attain reason, as they do not need it for survival. Humans are an outlier in almost every way. We were still sure of our superiority, but determined that hand-to-hand combat was to be avoided if possible, and if unavoidable, we would focus on numbers. Humans fought hard even when outmatched and outgunned. We tried occupying one of their worlds, but it proved to be a tough nut to crack. In the end, we had to resort to orbital bombardment in order to subdue the populace, as we saw even civilians taking up arms and defending their home. This was a mistake. News that we struck civilian targets spread through the human-dominated space like wildfire. To them, this was worse than declaring war. They have, during their long time of warfare, slowly crystallized this silly notion that the civilian population was sacrosanct, and that any injury or death to civilians was to be avoided at all costs. And if it was unavoidable, formal apologies were to be issued, even during wartime. Imagine the ridiculousness of that. I mean, until we fought the humans, we did not understand the concept of being a civilian. Every single one of our people spends time serving in the military. We are all soldiers. That was our mistake. We killed more than 60% of the population of that world in order to occupy it, and we never apologized for killing their civilians. This spurred them into such a frenzy. Almost overnight, all of their industrial capabilities were geared towards wartime. Their factories were churning out ships and weapons faster than they could train soldiers to crew and shoot them. To us, this started as a war of convenience. To them, it became a war of vengeance, of extermination. They adapted to our strategies with lightning speed. We were handed defeat after defeat, their sometimes unfinished ships crushing us in battle. Even worse, not soon after that, they started using a few of our effective tactics against us. Then we began to see that the ships incorporated some of our technologies, some even more effectively than we could. They turned our own weapons against us. We started using nuclear weapons, they developed countermeasures. We used poisons, they simply protected their soldiers. We spread virulent diseases, they developed vaccines and used them on their soldiers, untested. If we crippled their ship's weapons, they would ram us at full speed, triggering their reactors at the moment of impact, heedless of death. When they reached one of our worlds, it would be horrible. They systematically slaughtered their way through our populated areas, trying to leave as much infrastructure as they could intact. Where they couldn't, they obliterated entire cities from orbit. Sometimes they took prisoners. Most of the time they just killed everyone. The war lasted for 4 cycles. It was the longest military defeat any race presided on in the history of the Union. Nobody dared challenge the humans. Nobody even tried to get them to stop. They were all aware of our folly. The ruling body must have decided that this was a good lesson for all of the other members of the Union. Finally, humans reached our homeworld, having systematically destroyed and slaughtered their way through all other worlds we've had established colonies on. They spent days destroying our military and industrial infrastructure. Pacifying the populace was the correct verbiage, if I remember. Then, suddenly, they sued for peace. We were, of course, quick to accept. They compounded another insult upon all of this. The only thing they wanted, as it was stipulated in the treaty, was the planet they asked of us to begin with. Nothing more. And if we accepted, there would be peace between our two peoples. Not really having a choice, our pride stomped into the ground and then covered with excrement, we signed the peace treaty. The humans offered us aid. They sent medicine and food and their engineers to facilitate repairs to our world. If I did not see everything with my own eyes, I would have not believed it myself. We were the most powerful navy in the Union, my lord. Now we're a broken people living on our world, depending on the mercy of our enemy, whom we foolishly created ourselves. You want to know the worst part? Their ambassador told me that if we sued for peace at any time during our conflict, they would have stopped, but we did not. So, I implore you, do not challenge the humans. Nothing good can come of it. Your servant, always, Ambassador Sarek of the Serali.